Today we're joined by two guests who live right at the intersection of business strategy and environmental responsibility. Elena Cicoria and Giuseppe Cais come from Diligea, a benefit corporation that helps companies navigate the complex world of sustainability and ESG, which is an investing principle that prioritizes environmental issues, social issues, and corporate governance. Their team combines environmental engineering experience with business consulting know-how, bridging the technical and the strategic sides of ESG. Together, they advise companies on how to move beyond compliance, integrate sustainability into their core business, and prepare for what's coming next. Elena and Giuseppe, welcome to the Healthy Seas podcast.
Hi, Crystal. Thank you for having us.
Hello, Crystal.
So tell me a little bit about yourselves. What brought you to a sustainability consultancy and what motivated you to pursue this career path?
Okay, my personal background is in finance and business control. I spent more than 18 years in banking, and my last project in the bank was addressing sustainability KPIs in clients' investments, how to handle them, what to get in order to advise clients in their investments. I found it very interesting, and it looked like it was just the beginning of a new science, let's say. It was 5 years ago. So what happened, it was that I profited from the first company reshuffle to exit the bank and get back to the school. I followed an executive master in sustainability, and then here we are as advisor to SMEs. What I found interesting in advisory services is that it's allowing me to translate sustainability principles into material change, material impact to the companies and also to their stakeholders.
You just mentioned SMEs. Is that what you said?
Yes, SMEs is small and medium enterprises.
Oh, okay, great. And yourself, Elena?
So personally, I started my career as a conservationist, working on marine mammals. I used to study dolphins, and that was amazing. I love it there. And when I was younger, I've always been the child saying, I want to save animals, I want to save nature and that stuff. So it was pretty clear to me where to go when I went to uni. But after that, once I started to work in the research field, I just realized that's kind of a really challenging world to be in, and it was too hard to me to stay in there. So I decided to try to look for something different to help still nature, but just in a different way, And at this point, I found out that sustainability is this kind of big, broad word with many different concepts inside in it. And I was like, yeah, consultancy and corporate sustainability are a way to give us a better insight in the company's view towards nature. And it's just in this way, an indirect way to still help nature, not being on the field for sure, but still it's something towards it. So I like it there.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways to have an impact in environmental conservation, sustainability, all those fields. You don't have to be a field biologist.
Exactly. I mean, it's amazing, but sure, not for everybody, I would say. So
yeah, absolutely. What surprised you most when you first started working in ESG and sustainability?
Well, I was surprised to see how often sustainability is considered as a separate from the core business, as a risk management tool or an external communication subject, but not really deeply related on how the company is working, okay? Many companies and also many managers see the ESG projects as side projects rather than strategic enablers. So I think that sustainability can drive the way you develop new products and services. I think you can change the way you manage your procurement processes. So there is so many changes and so much impact that you can take from sustainability projects. So I think that the positive impact on business results of companies which have been integrating sustainability practices in their operations is relevant, and apparently there is still not well known. Okay, so it's a matter of time.
Yeah, as Giuseppe said, sustainability is kind of this brand new word to discover, and it's increasing in information day by day. So there's always something new to discover, to study, and to discuss more with people from different backgrounds as well. So that's really interesting. And I was surprised at first of how there's still lots of scarcity of clear information about it, and nobody really knows something. Like everybody has a different vision about it, and it's really hard to find a straight line in defining the term sustainability. So that was kind of a challenge, to be up to date, also with regulation, because they are really changing pretty fast. And it's hard for companies to be up to date with that. So the interesting and surprising thing about it is that you can really be helpful for them, because they don't know where to look at on a daily basis, and they do not know where to start.
Yeah, they're just trying to run the company.
Yeah, and to do their best for sure. But it's tough for them.
So much seems to be changing and fast. Let's go directly to the current times. Heading into the next EU cycle and the Global Plastics Treaty, what should executives be watching that will actually change their work streams in the next 12 months?
Okay, I think executives should closely watch three things. Okay, first one is what's happening on the reporting regulations, the CSRD, the reporting directive. There is a sort of swing, so we were expecting that 40,000 European companies was due to report under these regulations, new regulation, and today what we are expecting is less than 10,000. Okay, so there are big changes, and it's very important for top managers to follow the changes and to follow what's happening under the regulations point of view. Then the outcomes and the deadlocks in global plastic treaty negotiations can or could require companies to accelerate their action on circularity. So I would say that most of the companies should prepare an operating plan in order to, let's say, orderly manage their plastics products. Okay. And then moving beyond the regulatory compliance, it is essential to examine to what extent sustainability can serve as a catalyst for the transformation of the company. Okay, aspirational statements are no longer enough. Clients and markets demand for real impact, and I think this is the very big changes, the biggest change.
What are the two biggest shifts that sustainability and comms teams are underestimating right now?
Well, again, I think we normally think to the legal framework as a static, but it isn't anymore. So it's a sort of challenge also under the communication point of view, because probably many teams have recently defined an internal plan to answer to the tightening of the rules, while in Europe we see withdrawals or suspensions of rules. So this could be not that easy to manage, okay? And then what is becoming more relevant is stakeholder scrutiny, okay, from NGOs, from local communities, from media, from independent journalists. The scrutiny is strong. It has a different nature. It is driven by the interest of younger generations and could impact the communication plans and activities of the companies. So it's very important to address this issue by anticipating it with, let's say, a risk assessment. Okay.
Yeah, I do worry about the pullback, because that's happening, or seems to be happening, in many places, including the US. And I worry about companies greenwashing in order to appeal to as you said, like the younger generations perhaps who are interested in actual change, like avoiding greenwashing.
No.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard. Like, it's a broad, again, topic to be covered, the greenwashing stuff, Most of the time, companies try to say statements or something like, oh, we're doing this amazing thing in there. But then there's nobody actually checking that most of the time. I mean, for sure. Not every kind of thing happens like that. So it's hard. There's some regulations about that as well. But again, it's still most of the time unclear. That's why many companies are still able to do greenwashing these days, And yeah,
something we need to steer away
to shift
from
more again. Yeah.
But
also, another thing that I think it's like the vision people have on sustainability right now, it's more a theoretical one, a philosophical thing. It's like a ghost. It's everywhere, but nowhere at the same time. And companies and governments and so on needs to start to think in a more practical way. And then the shift can really happen. You know what I mean? It's tough to explain, but I think that's another topic to be solved in the upcoming years. So
yeah, that's a good point. But I guess little by little, right?
Yeah, step at a time.
One step at a time. What do you see most often missing from the strategies of companies you assess in order to have a greater impact?
Well, probably there are several steps to be taken. And so what's missing at first sight is the daily operational integration of sustainability into company processes. So maybe communication is there, but when you look at supply chain management, company plans, R&D activities, there is no actions which are implementing the communication that top managers are, let's say, are using. Okay, so another missing point could be KPIs and reporting. Normally, sustainability projects are started by the top management and by the top of the agenda, but then they don't have a bottom up goal. Okay, and so is the reporting is missing, and of course it's very difficult if you miss it to also, let's say, present your actions in a, let's say, clear way to the clients and to the external stakeholders. And then what I think is probably missing is also communication less aspirational and more linked to concrete steps, okay, to practical steps, to KPIs, to, I don't know, euros, dollars, investments, more linked to the common business practices. If you are so aspirational, it looks like you want to avoid the hard facts.
And is this what your company, Diligea, works to help with?
Yes, absolutely. In our projects, we try to, of course, we start with an assessment of company positioning in its market and towards their competitors. And then we tend to stress on operating, let's say, actions and operating plans in order to implement actions, and then maybe having ESG reporting as a second step. So it's better to start with simple projects and then have very pragmatic communications instead of starting with a big announcement and then lacking of hard facts.
Is corporate reporting as it is done today still valid to keep control, or should it change? What's failing in it?
The feeling is that probably, I think it has improved transparency in the education, and also it has highlight some news flow on some technical themes. So you normally can read in business newspapers articles on CO2 KPIs today, while 5 years ago it was impossible. So I think there has been some improvement, but it's very difficult today to have let's say, a standardized playing field in Europe compared to US or compared to Asia. There are no international standards set. And also large corporate and small and medium enterprises are not speaking the same language. So there are still some lacking points.
Would you say that companies often miss operational integration or data quality in their ESG reporting?
Yes, they are. And also the data required by large companies to their supply chain are lacking, are measured with different standards, are related to different legal frameworks. So if you are a multinational with plants in South America, Europe, and Africa, and you ask your suppliers if their work conditions are in line with the local work environment, of course, everybody's answering yes, but there are very big changes in
From
their
place
level.
to place.
So I think it would take some time.
Yeah, I would also add that we need to keep in mind that sustainability is still kind of a new thing we are facing. So it's not as other activities that started many centuries ago. It's something that started the past century. So what people like governments and let's say the European Union and everybody that has the power to draw like requirements and laws is still trying to set the baseline because they started from scratch and they have so many different kind of activities. Like companies, they go from logistic companies to companies that actually build something, produce something, from raw materials, from putting together different materials that have been already produced. So it's not easy to put all this stuff together in certain small specific data point they've been asking. So it's such a long journey and we're still at the beginning, I would say.
So that actually makes me think of a question that kind of relates back to what we were talking about earlier with the pullbacks. Why would a company choose to even invest in ESG with the complications and the reduction of requirements and whatnot?
Yeah, this is the main issue we face daily on a daily basis, I would say. It's hard to convince them sometimes, but the thing they need to understand is that by giving more attention to ESG topics, they can be more resilient when it comes to, let's say, climate change and risks. So in the end, even if it needs more money from them now, in the upcoming years, they will benefit from it because they will have less damages, let's say, from extreme climate events and so on. So the hard part is saying you need to invest now to spend less later. With the photovoltaic thing as well, like if you auto-produce energy, you will spend more money now, but then you will benefit from it later on. So
how do you see the topic of biodiversity inserting itself in this and growing in the next few years compared to emissions and climate change?
See, the topic of biodiversity is pretty tough when it comes to sustainability, because commonly when you say, yeah, it's sustainable, people start to think of emissions, carbon footprint, and so on. So what's my impact on the planet? In terms of emissions, it's pretty easy to quantify them, because you can basically conduct every kind of activity or product in terms of CO2 quantity, because there's plenty of methodologies that are still really consolidated, even in between different contexts. While in terms of biodiversity, when we have different habitats, ecosystems, and species that are all unique, it's really hard to find metrics that could be comparable in between different words. So it's pretty hard to try to find a solution about this. But yes, again, the topic is increasing in attention from people, media, and the governments as well, and people who actually write down the laws. For example, the European Union this year, in last July, has been able to write down a roadmap to define better nature credits. What are nature credits? Are basically investments that company can, let's say, destinate to initiatives that are to improve the conservation of habitats and restoration projects. So they basically pay to give fundings to NGOs or conservationists or other any kind of people you can think of in a way that can limitate what their impact is with their production processes, you know? And this is a step forward the conservation of biodiversity. Also, another big issue that we are facing is that for small and medium enterprises that are not for now included in EU regulation, it's pretty hard because they have many different kind of activities. But for now, the cutoff value to say whether they need to report on certain data points, in this case, biodiversity, is the number of employees. So let's say two different small enterprises, for example, have completely different activities. Let's say one is a logistic company, the other one is producing fruit. They will for sure have a different impact on the environment, but they will have different requirements from the EU just because of the number of employees. This is just an example to let you understand what the context is, you know. So it's still not working that much. We need to work more to solve this kind of issue. But again, they are really trying to move steps to improve in this direction. So we hope in the upcoming future things will get better in terms of biodiversity.
So it might be hard, but why is it so important that companies connect biodiversity with their business model and core processes?
Well, as we mentioned before, companies are becoming increasingly aware that there's a strict connection between the financial stability and the protection care of natural capital. Because every kind of company relies on the ecosystem services that are basically, as we said, services that nature provides to everybody without even thinking of that. Let's think of bees. They are pollinators and they're really helpful. And that's an ecosystem services. And there's plenty of others, you know, that helps actually companies on a daily basis in their activities. So companies need to understand that by helping nature, they're also helping themselves from the inside in an indirect way again. So also it's important to them because they can undergo three different kinds of risks if they do not look at nature. First of all, a physical risk, because for sure the effects on production will be negative if they do not act previously. Second, a reputational risk, because they will have a negative public perception for sure if they do not do anything. And third, a regulatory risk for sure, because we are talking about compliance with regulation at the EU level. So again, it's important for them. The thing we are trying to really let our clients understand at first is that even a small step, it's actually a big step forward something else, you know? So to integrate biodiversity risk management into their business model can actually have many different benefits for them.
Being healthy seas, we already know the importance of oceans for everybody. But people commonly believe oceans are related only to activities that operate there. Why is it important to understand that oceans are linked to every activity as well?
Well, as you said, it's pretty easy to think of activities that operate directly in oceans. Let's say logistic companies at first, and then fishery for sure again. So it's pretty easy to see how they have an impact on the oceans. It's pretty hard to see how every other kind of industry actually has an impact in there as well. Because if you start of thinking of what you actually have to put together to produce a product and then to export it to the final client, then you start to think of the transportation that happens to that kind of good. So you buy a raw material that's in another country probably, and then it will be shipped by sea with a container ship probably. And then that's where you have an impact on the oceans as well. So transportation and logistics are for sure not only a problem of logistic companies, but of every kind of company. At the same time, every kind of activity, production activity, produces waste and emissions that in a way or another flow into waterways and eventually in the oceans. So again, the impact is cumulative. So it starts from the extractions of material, then it all goes down to the upstream transportation and production of products. Then there's the production itself in the plants where the company actually works with emissions and waste. And then we have the transportation to the downstream chain, I would say, of the company. And it's important to understand that with this vision, the effort everybody puts towards the conservation on the oceans, it's important because it's not only a thing that should be taken and solved by companies operating in there. It's pretty hard to understand. I agree with that. And with people saying, oh, no, it's not a problem. But in the end, everybody can do his part. So there's still hope.
From your perspective, what role can NGOs like Healthy Seas play in helping companies meet their ESG goals?
I think it's important to see our planet as a big complex system in which there are different actors. Specifically, we have companies, NGOs such as Healthy Seas and conservationists, and then governments. These parts are all interconnected and they all have an impact on each other's activity. Companies, as we said before, are required to report about the initiatives and upgrades they are doing towards being more sustainable, And they have a certain amount of fundings they have to give to other initiatives or education program. In this term, Healthy Seas, such as other NGOs, can help companies having some KPIs or data points covered in their regulatory scheme they have to follow because it's mandatory to them. At the same time, conservationists can have finally money to conduce their activity, their research, and helping actually in a direct way, in this sense, the environment, or even collecting waste from the waters, But they need money to, run the boat physically and sustain people working in there. And also, conservationists and NGOs can help ensuring accountability and transparency, because companies cannot guarantee that. So it's important to have this collaboration because it's a way of assuring things are doing in the correct way and it's not, as we said, greenwashing or just saying we do something for that. At the same time, governments could benefit from all this system as well because it's easier for them to monitor the SDGs targets and progresses during the year.
Yeah, so companies partnering with NGOs can bridge the gap between reporting and real impact.
Exactly. That's the thing. That's the most important thing, yeah.
Yeah, and at Healthy Seas, we've seen how partnerships can help companies move from reporting to real impact, whether it's through ocean cleanups or circular economy collaborations or even education programs. So we're on it.
Yeah, and the communication here is important as well because it helps both sides. It helps like companies saying we're actually sustainable, we're doing something. At the same time, it's like for NGOs like yours, something saying these are the results in a more technical way we are collecting thanks to the company that funded us as well. So yeah, communication again is the very key of the whole system as usually. So
always.
Yeah.
And last but not least, what gives each of you hope for the future in this field?
Giuseppe, do you want to start first?
Yes, thank you. So I think the strongest and most significant push for sustainability issues comes not from red tape or compliance duties, but primarily from the sensitivity of clients. And the clients are driven by younger generations, by local communities, and even by some business clients. And I think also that young employees and local communities are extremely critical and attentive today to the environmental and social behavior of the companies, of the employers, of the suppliers. And the social media are so open to all opinions. So it's like in a family where young people immediately understand and maybe detest their parents' contradictions and vices. Okay, so my hope is that young generations, no matter if as employees or as clients or as investors, why not? Well, they can profit of the spread of the technical culture of sustainability and will transform the companies in, let's say, new companies more active and open to ESG projects because it's their needs. And of course, companies will change because they need to respond to their stakeholder needs. So this is my hope.
So on my side, I'd be a bit more philosophical, I would say, but they call me a dreamer, so it's kind of normal, I would say. So I think what I've seen is that to work directly with small and medium enterprises, we usually work with their owner or the manager that operates the whole company, And with the last regulations published, many of these small and medium enterprises have been excluded for now. It means it's not mandatory for them to report about certain data these years, at least for now. But again, it's something. And I've seen that many of our clients decided to keep going with their journey towards sustainability in a voluntary way. And it's amazing, I think, because it's like you're nobody is saying you need to do that, but you're still doing that. It's even better, that other companies that are required to do that. So I think this is the big hope I take home every day after talking with our clients. And it's amazing. I mean, I hope it goes even better in this way. And many companies day by day are getting more motivated to keep going in that sense. So in the end, our planet would benefit from it.
Yes, I agree, and I hope right along with you. Giuseppe and Elena, thank you for the work that you're doing. This is so important, and thank you for sharing your insights with us today. Keep up the good work, and good luck with everything.
Thank you, Crystal,
so
for your time and your openness to this experience. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Healthy Seas podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, follow and share it with others who care about the ocean. Want to dive deeper? Subscribe to our newsletter at healthyseas.org/newsletter for behind-the-scenes stories, upcoming projects, and partner updates from around the world. There are many ways to be part of the mission. Donate, partner, spread the word, or simply stay connected. Explore how at healthyseas.org/take-action. Together, we can turn marine waste into waves of